At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes, at the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today, and let us surprise you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret, and today I am talking to authors Simone, Davies, and Junnifa Uzodike. They are veteran Montessori educators who are beloved globally. Simone teaches Montessori classes in the Netherlands and hosts the incredibly popular The Montessori Notebook blog. And Junnifa sits on the executive board of the International Montessori Association and runs a school in Abuja, Nigeria. Their book, The Montessori Child, A Parent's Guide to Raising Capable Children with Creative Minds and Compassionate Hearts, is available now. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much.
So
thank you for having us.
Welcome. I think that in the US, we were just speaking a moment before we got on, Montessori is often thought of as something for preschool kids, that we have what are called Montessori schools, and they are preschools, basically. And so Montessori is something that is relevant in a lot of people's minds for kids 3 to 4 years old. So, Junnifa, talk a little bit about why that's not a correct perspective and how in the book, the work of Montessori goes throughout childhood. And maybe even more interesting, the work of Montessori comes a lot from the parental side as well.
All right. So yes, you're right. For the longest time, many people have assumed that Montessori is a school, a kind of school. And usually they think it's only for children from, maybe 3 to 4 or 5. But even in Montessori's time, she actually had programs developed for children from birth and until 12. The 6 to 12, she was developing more towards the end of her life. But after she died, her son took over and actually developed it further. But beyond being a way that children learn in school, she also thought of it of a way for parents, for moms to raise their children, for dads to raise their children. And for us, what we have done is written it in such a way that it seems accessible, or it is accessible to parents all over the world. It is a way of being with your children. It's a philosophy, a way of life, a lens through which you can view your children, that you can interact with them. So it's a way for people to set up their homes, to allow their children to be independent, a way to be with your children, a way to respond to your children. And this can start even from when your child is in utero, when you're pregnant. You can already start to think about how to support them, talking to them, singing to them, creating little routines, even from when you're pregnant. And then as they're born, creating a home environment that supports them, viewing them as capable even from birth, and then going through their early years, continuing to support their development of independence. And then as they grow older, from 6 to 12, giving them a different kind of independence. So in the first few years, we're giving them functional independence, where we're allowing them to do things for themselves, giving them the opportunities to do things for themselves, showing them how to do it, and creating an enabling environment that allows them to do things for themselves. But then as they get older, we're allowing them to think for themselves. So we're supporting them on how to find answers to the questions that they may have, giving them those questions that allow them to think, giving them the tools, showing them how to think. And then as they get even older, because in the book, there's an extra chapter that deals with adolescence, teaching them how to fend for themselves, right? How to be social, how to be amongst others, how to think and make decisions for themselves. And this might be moral decisions. So it's really a way of life that can grow with your child from birth until adulthood. It's a way it helps the adults think differently, view their children differently, and then really establish their role. What is your role in your child's life? And that role changes as the child grows, and we really help you start to understand what that role is and how you can be. So it is a way of education in a school environment, but more than that, it's a way of being with our children and guiding them as they go from birth until adulthood. And I hope that people can find ideas for this in the book.
There are so many. I want to just give a shout out for the book that layout of the book is extremely accessible. And one of the things we talk a lot about on the podcast is trying not to offer any mom any more work. You know, that a lot of times we are presented with, there's a secret chest out there that has these solutions that are going to make everything okay. And you, mom, it's your job to go and find it. And one of the things I really like about this book is the information is presented extremely in a very accessible way. And it says on the back cover, the antidote for overwhelmed parents. So it's not about taking on something else. It's a solution for parental overwhelm. Simone, can you talk a little bit from that point of view of, first of all, why are we all feeling so overwhelmed? I mean, we, most of us, chose to have children, sought to have children, wanted to have this experience, love our children, want the best for them. I mean, anyone listening to this podcast has really opted into parenting, right? They're out there seeking solutions. Why this sense of overwhelm, and how does Montessori and the book particularly offer solutions to that overwhelm?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely overwhelming having a family these days, because you have the pull from work and balancing it with our family lives, because most of the people who are reading this book, it's for children from 3 to 12 years old and then into adolescence. They're often back to work. And even if you're a stay-at-home parent, there's a lot on our plates and we're juggling that all. There's also a lot of negative vibes going on. If you read the media, immediately we get drawn into all of the overwhelm from what's happening in society, what's happening with the climate, what's happening in other parts of the planet, the political situation we may not be happy with. So that feels overwhelming and out of our control. And what I love about Montessori is it takes a step back, and it's actually often less is more. So instead of doing more, we want to be more. When we talk about this observation that Junnifa was talking about, looking at our child with a lens, then actually instead of thinking, oh, we need to do all these things for our child, why don't we stop, observe, look at what our child needs, and then we can step in. And so we're learning to respond rather than just react to everything that keeps happening in our lives. And one of the big things I think that helps with the overwhelm is coming up with some family agreements so that everyone's clear. So I used to call them house rules, and it's really not house rules because they're agreements that are made with the whole family. And once they're above 3, definitely by the time they're 6, they can be involved in making those agreements. And then because they've had a part in agreeing on them, then you just have to say, oh, what's our agreement about rough play? And they might say, oh yeah, rough play by mutual consent, which is a real mouthful for like a child, but you come up with your own kind of one, but they know what that means. And I used to just kind of say like, oh, I heard stop, because that's our word. And then the children knew, oh, actually, we have to stop now because someone says stop. Or I could prompt them by saying, oh, it sounds like someone needs to say stop. And then other times I can just be like a houseplant and I'm sitting on the side watching them fighting and just seeing if I need to step in or if it's just one of those things they need to sort out from themselves. So it can be the way that we react, we're responding instead, that is less. It's also about not overscheduling children and giving them more time and space in their week and their days to explore. And you actually see your children become happier because they've got less overwhelmed themselves. It's also about setting up our homes that's less is more. So often we say we've got so many toys, and the children still say, Mom, I'm bored. Dad, I'm bored.
I'm bored. Yes.
And actually, when we pull away a lot of the things that are on our shelves and in our homes and actually put out less things that are based on observation, based on our child's interest, we see, oh, actually, when there's fewer things out, when you go on holidays, you just take a few things and they manage to come up with great creative ideas, So it's actually having great storage and putting most of the things away. And then you realize, oh, I don't actually need to buy as much stuff. And then I'm not spending lots of time, buying on Amazon or, things like that. We're looking at just what we have. And it's all about stepping back, taking a big breath, and also looking after ourselves. And so it's about working with the child, the environment, and the adult. It's not just all the adult's responsibility. It's actually how we support our child.
I think that's crucial to it, that I think we often are told, especially in parenting writing and parenting books, that we are kind of being handed a lump of clay, and it is our job to stay up all night and read and figure out how to shape this lump of clay into exactly what we want them to be, society needs them to be, and also somehow a creature that will, in the US, get into Harvard and Yale and somehow be, famous. I don't know, all these different things that people think that they want. And when we come back from this break, I want to talk about this idea of the guide as opposed to the sculptor. And I think that it's really interesting for people. So we'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So, Junnifer, before we took a break, I was talking about this very central idea in the book of the guide, that is the parental role. Can you talk a little bit about the concept of the guide versus what I think people sometimes get trapped in, which is the idea of the sculptor or the molder of children, and what the role of the guide that is laid out in this book really looks like?
So in Montessori, we view the parent or the adult more as a guide. And it's really, again, in the view that we have of the child. So many times, many people view their children as maybe someone who they have to mold, who they have to create to a vision that they have in themselves. Like, so I have this picture of what my child should be, a successful, whatever you have in your mind. But really, we view our children differently. An example that I like to give, or an analogy, is to think about a seed, right? When you take a seed and you plant the seed, when you water the seed, you don't really tell the seed what to do. It already has the plant inside of it. You're basically the nurturer of the conditions. You have to make sure it's good soil. You have to make sure it's enough water. You have to make sure there's sunlight. But the seed by itself knows what to do. It has the plant in itself already. So that's kind of what we do as guides. We're not trying to create the plant that will come out of the seed. No, we're creating the enabling environment. We make sure that our homes are nurturing, have warmth for our child, that our child feels loved and supported, our child feels understood. So we give ourselves knowledge. So we read, we study to understand what the child's natural development is. And then we observe our child, because even though there are prescriptions for what children should do, a child is supposed to walk at so and so age, or a child is supposed to, each of our children are unique and will follow their own unique timeline. You can plant 3 seeds of the same plant on the same day, but 3 of them will develop differently. So knowing that our children are unique, so taking time to understand our unique child and then guiding them, guiding them might look like observing them, modeling to them, how they are supposed to be. So if a child is in an environment where language is spoken, they will learn how to speak the language. So our work is not necessarily to teach them a language, but even just by speaking that language, modeling to them the behaviors that we want to see in them, but then also trusting and allowing them to follow their own individual paths. So it's really, again, just a way to see the child. A guide also sees the child's capacity, knows that they're able to do things. And so when you see them trying to do something, if they're struggling, you're observing and seeing, what do I need to show them? How much help do I need to give them without taking over the process? I'll share a story that someone just shared with me like a few minutes ago that kind of illustrates for me how a guide behaves, or what a difference between a guide and instructor. So I have a parent whose daughter was supposed to give a presentation in school about seashells. And so her mom shared with me that she came out last week. I was supposed to be in bed already, but she was working with her Lego and making Lego earrings. And so she said her first reaction was to tell her, why are you still up building Lego at this time of the night? You should be in bed. But she's a Montessori mom, and she knows that usually there's a logical explanation. And so she asked her, what are you doing? It's 9 p.m. And so her daughter shared with her, I'm giving a presentation tomorrow on seashells. And I noticed that my Lego set has some shells that I can put an earring hook on. So she wanted to wear those seashell earrings as part of her presentation. So it's just understanding that there's usually a logical explanation, right? We can have conversations with our children to understand. And as Simone said earlier, we're responding instead of reacting. We're not looking at our children and trying to draw conclusions without truly observing. And as they get older, having conversations with them. We know that they are logical as they get from 6 to 12, they have a logical mind. So being a guide is telling them what is happening. When we give them what our expectations are, or if we have a conversation about what is happening, we listen. When they tell us why, because they start to ask why a lot, we're not just saying because I said so. We're helping them to understand the rules. We're helping them to be independent in their decision making. So we know that if they understand why, then they'll be able to make those decisions for themselves as they get older. So those are some examples of how a guide is different. A guide is allowing the child to develop in their own way, at their own pace, setting those boundaries, but carrying the child along, knowing that we're trying to build independence with them. And independence always starts with dependence. We're doing things for the child, we're feeding them, and then it goes to collaboration. We're doing with them. So whether it's feeding, whether it's making decisions, whether it's dressing up, everything we do with our children follows the same path. Even reading, right? First of all, we're reading to them when they're babies, and then we read together. Maybe they're reading, and if they come to a challenging word, we tell them what that word is, and then gradually they start to read independently. So that's the path that it follows in many things. We're going from dependence to collaboration to independence. And that's something that makes a guide different, because you know that that's the process. And so you're willing to follow that path to independence. Our goal is always to give our children independence, but we know that it's a process, and we're happy to walk with them on that journey.
I love the metaphor of the plant, because I think that so often where we get lost as parents, and we sometimes on the podcast use the metaphor of a boat, that we sometimes think we're the driver of the boat and the child is sitting in the boat and we just take them around. And that in fact, we're not even in the boat. They're in their own boat. And we're just kind of maybe on the sidelines and trying. And I really like the metaphor of the plant, because you can tell a plant what to be and talk to it all day about what its goals should be. And you could do all of those things, but it doesn't change the plant. It just makes yourself crazy. And I think that for a lot of parents, what gets in the way of this, and tell me, Junnifer, if you agree with this, that it's anxiety. It's the idea that we have so much control over our kids and that need to want the plant to turn out a very specific way when we don't really have a lot of control over it. So how do we step away from that anxious idea that we should be doing more and feel more comfortable in the role of guide?
I think that, you know what I found? I found that once you start, you'll find that it's actually easier. Like it's just a decision. You just start and you'll see that you start to actually enjoy your children. You start to enjoy the process of parenting and it gets easier as you go. It's one of those things that you just, you make a decision and it's hard in the beginning. You make a decision that you trust. We say a lot, I say a lot that we have to trust the process. And it's really hard because many of us were not raised this way. We were raised with, those expectations from our parents, maybe a society that kind of forced us to be a certain way. So it's a challenge to then switch your mindset or switch those expectations. So I think it's, again, closing that gap of our experiences, of our expectations, and just making up our minds. And then watching the process unfold. I think it's similar. We can go back to the analogy of the plant, right? I think that when you start, just like when you plant a seed, you don't know what's happening. It doesn't look like anything is happening. And then one day you see a little bud and it encourages you, right? You keep watering, you keep caring for the plant and you see the stem, then you see the blossom. And then gradually, it takes time before it gets to fruit. But you see those little growth signs that encourage thinking. You'll start to see, when you look, you'll start to see those signs that let you know that this is the right way to be. It doesn't feel as challenging because it's like you trust that the child will be what they're meant to be. And so you focus on what is within your control, yourself, the environment, the opportunities that you offer, but then you allow the child to become who they're going to be. And I think it's one of those things that as you do it, the more you do it, the better you get at it, but it's first a decision. It's first a conscious choice that you make, and then you just stick to it and keep going. That's what I think. Simone, what about you? What do you think helps?
Yeah, I think also knowing that we are letting them become the best version of themselves, and then we can just let go of the rest, right? Because actually when someone looks at me and gives me lots of space to be myself, I can grow in many different directions and have many possibilities. And I think many of us have got to our adulthood and realized, oh, that was just an expectation that I had from my parents, or that was just an expectation that everyone's meant to go to university and get married and have kids and these kind of things. And actually, I don't want to put that onto my child. And so I think that Montessori is what Junnifer said at the beginning, is like actually finding the joy in parenting again. So how fun is it to go to the playground and actually see a child like doing things for themselves, but we're there to support them, just scaffold a little bit of skills. Okay, they haven't been able to climb up that thing before. How little help do I need to give them and how much help do I need to give them? I don't want to actually hold their body as they climb up that climbing frame because then they're going to fall down, but I can be there to maybe just spot them, because they're going up higher than they've been before. How many times has your child climbed up a tree and they've just gone a little bit higher than you were expecting? And you're there just to, not to say, oh, don't worry, you're going to fall, and telling them not to climb higher and those kind of things, but just say, oh, can you find a branch where you can put your foot on? Is that making you feel secure? Press on it. Is that a safe branch? And you're actually giving them the skills they need to climb down the tree before you just go up and rescue,
Right. As a guide, it makes sense to me. Okay, so we're going to take a break and we're going to talk a little bit. We've sold people. They're like, I'm all in. I want the Montessori life. We're going to talk a little bit about practical guidelines when we come back.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
Okay, so Simone, in the book, you talk about the triumvirate, these kind of 3 ideas that are the backbone, for lack of a better word, of the Montessori system. So people have been listening. They're like, I love this. I love the plant analogy. Junnifa has me sold on that idea. I want now to start looking into this idea further. They're going to get the book, obviously, but let's talk them through these sort of 3 central ideas of Montessori, starting with raising our children in the spirit of respect, love, and understanding. It's a big one.
It is, because respect comes from actually respecting each other, right? If I can't say, oh, you have to respect me. In fact, it builds from trust and respecting each other. Love, because love is actually at the core. And instead of fear, which is the other side of love, is like, how can I actually approach my child with love, as opposed to worried that they're going to get into drugs, or worried that they're going to, not develop or ever learn to read, and those kind of things. So we're always coming back to love. And understanding is what Junnifa said as well, is reading books, educating ourselves on how children develop and how we can support their development. And in one thing we do in Montessori as well is we remove obstacles to their development. And with a very young child, it could be, the cute overalls that we wear, but when they're learning to use the toilet, those overalls are really a pain. They're not going to help their development. So it's a bit like, let's take the overalls off and wear something that's going to be supportive. And that's the same as they're going through childhood. Like, even it could be, oh, they're not packing away their things when we get home from school. I always have to take their lunchbox out, and I find moldy lunchboxes in their class. And actually, instead, how can we scaffold the skills and support them, understand them, and realize, oh, my child's now entering the age from 6 to 12. In that age, they actually haven't got the external order that they had when they were a young child. And so how can I set up a system? It might be that we make with them a little checklist of the things that they need to do when they get home from school, and they can check those off. Oh, I need to take my lunchbox out. I need to put my dirty sports clothes into the laundry basket. And then I'm going to make sure I have a snack, because otherwise I get hangry. It might be that just some scaffold that will help them, and they've come up with it and they've designed it in the way that they feel good about it. And then you can just point to the sign and say, oh, before you go off to hang out with friends, these are the 3 things we need to do. And you can just point to the chart of the thing that they've actually come up with. So that's kind of how we can parent in a Montessori way. And the other parts of the triumvirate, because you get a lot of parenting books that tell you what you're meant to do, like we said at the very beginning of the interview. And instead, what I love about Montessori is we've got 2 other parts. And one is like the activities, and the other is setting up the home. And the activities help give your child meaning and things that they feel passionate about, things that they're working to master. And then they actually regulate themselves because they're interested in what they're playing with, or helping around the home, and how we can help them to be a full human. Because it's not just about academics, reading and writing, but actually about the world around around us and engaging in the world. And, sometimes less screens as well, but we also know that technology exists in their lives and how we can manage that. And then you have this environment which is set up so that they feel like they're a part of the home and that is our helper. In Montessori, we use environment for the classroom, or it could be for the home. And in our classrooms, we set things up so the children can help themselves, so they can make choices for themselves, so they can feel empowered. And we do the same thing at home. Instead of us having to basically, I think if you looked at a lot of communication in families, you just see a lot of directions. We have to do this, and we have to do that, and we have to do this. And that's what a lot of our communication is about. And instead, when you step back and you set up the environment, like about what snacks they can eat, for example, why don't I actually set up a little area in the kitchen that is their snack area? And the other thing you could do, like if you want your children to make their own lunches, a lot of people are still making their children's lunches to take to school, but instead the children actually get to choose what's in their lunchbox, and then they're more likely to actually eat what's in their lunchbox as opposed to bringing it home and you're like, oh, they didn't eat their things again. And I said, oh, would you like to choose what's in your lunchbox? And then again, having acceptable options available for them in the fridge, maybe on one shelf of the fridge, to make it easy for them to have success. And so that's part of using the environment to also help in that parenting process.
Let me give voice to the people who are listening and are saying, okay, but my kid would only pack gummy bears for lunch, and my kid can't be trusted. I get that these people, they sound very smart and fancy and their kids must be angels, but my kid would never do these things. What do you say to people who say, this doesn't sound like my child?
I can imagine. Exactly. It sounds like a parenting whiz, but actually also I did say acceptable options, and that acceptable options is very important because we can also teach our children what feeds our body, what nourishes our body, and nothing's a bad food, but how much gummy bears makes us feel good and not feel good. And these are the things that we're taking to school, and these are the things that we're not taking to school. They can be involved in making the shopping list to come and do the groceries with us. And actually from 6 to 12-year-olds, unfortunately, we mostly live in big cities, so they can't go independently unless they live in a small village, but we could actually stand at the door of the supermarket and they can actually go in with their shopping list, and we can just supervise from the door of the supermarket, and they can feel empowered, like, oh, I'm choosing from this list of options what I would actually do. So we're always guiding them. They're going to make bad decisions. I remember we had an opportunity to go to a restaurant where you could serve as much chocolate mousse as you wanted. So we all took enormous bowlfuls of it, and we all felt really ill the next day. And my children's conclusion wasn't that I'm a bad parent. It was just like, I'm never going to eat so much chocolate mousse again. Right. So they actually learn from their mistakes. So there's
learning involved.
Always learning. Exactly.
And just before we leave, I want to touch on, because you do touch on in the book, and Junnifa, maybe you can talk about children with different needs developmentally. Is Montessori, does it make sense for kids who might be on the spectrum, kids who have disabilities? How does this pertain if somebody's listening and thinking, my kid's not just outside of this because they would eat too many gummy worms, but my kid is outside of this because they have different needs?
So I really think, and we agree that Montessori is for every child because it follows the child. It follows each individual child. It creates an environment that meets your child's needs. It's not prescriptive in the sense that it says at 2 years old, you must do this. It tells you what to look for and then how to meet the different needs of your child or your children. So Montessori, in my experience, and I think, it's been around for over a century, and it has really been tried with children in different countries of different capacities with different needs. And it works because, again, it's looking at the individual child. It allows each child to grow at their own pace. It provides an environment that is flexible to meet the child's needs. A lot of times the materials, I'm talking now about a Montessori classroom or even in a Montessori home, the toys are toys that appeal to children who have different needs, because it's usually it provides sensory feedback, but it's not overwhelming. The environment has set up in such a way that it's like Simone said, less is more. And so those environments, I find, allow children that have additional needs to really thrive, because again, the environment is modifiable. The environment responds to the child, whatever the child's needs are. It calls for the adults to slow down and observe the child and respond to the child. And that's exactly what children, every kind of child, but especially children who have additional needs, that's what they need. Someone observing them and responding to their needs. So yes, regardless of what your child's needs are, you can definitely apply these ideas because it's, again, individualized. It allows you to meet your child's needs. We set boundaries and give freedom, but boundaries for your specific child and freedoms for your specific child. And you can always pull back or allow more as your child needs.
Excellent. The book, The Montessori Child, A Parent's Guide to Raising Capable Children with Creative Minds and Compassionate Hearts, is available now wherever books are sold. Simone, tell us where people who have been intrigued by this conversation can find more resources about Montessori.
Yeah, so obviously we'd love them to read our book. You can find lots of free resources on my website, which is themontessorinotebook.com. And Junnifa also has a beautiful Instagram, Enduomo, Montessori Enduomo, and also her school. There's lots of snapshots of children in the classroom and how you can then apply those principles at home. And that's Fruitful Orchard Montessori School. So hopefully those help the families. There's lots of things there, from like activities lists that give you ideas based on your child's interests. There's lots of free resources that you can check out and find out how to find that balance between setting limits and giving them freedom. And I hope it will be a lot of help for families to bring a little bit of Montessori into their homes.
Excellent. I really recommend this book, and I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks so much for talking to me today.
Thanks so much for having us, Margaret. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Margaret.